And just like that, we are back with another recap review of the Max hit show. And just like that, it's your boy Lucas with my amazingly bohemian goddess Nubian co-host Amaya. What's going on with you this evening?
What is up? Oh, let's get into this. This is kind of juicy, still a little boring, but juicier. It's like I don't eat steak. I don't eat steak, so I'm not sure if I could categorize it like medium well, right? Because I feel like that means to be like a little brown on the outside, but still slightly pink on the inside. Is that like
That's a medium well. It's about that way.
all
This
right?
this
Well then,
episode for me, medium well is the perfect steak. So this ain't a perfect episode. This is kind of like a medium rare. Like some people, this would be great. For other people, this would be like it's just too much redness. It's just too much pink in it. Like it's kind of that mixture this episode. But let's jump quickly into it. First, we start off with Carrie going out to breakfast with Jackie, who I forgot existed on this show. But during it, we meet Eden again. Eden is a carryover from the original Sex and the City series, played by Candice Bergen. She is Carrie's former boss, but also a very irritating character.
very.
So let me ask you, what do you think about the reintroduction of her here, and then the shade that she throws at Carrie for her book, while then turning back around again and trying to get Carrie to, well, we find out later on is invest, but it seems like come to speak or write in her article that is geared toward older women and looping Carrie into that older women category with her.
Listen, the fact that Carrie got looped up is just it's so sad. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
you loop me down. That's fine. Like, oh girl, you look like you 30. I'm like, oh, thank you. You tell me I look like I'm 50. We got a problem. Somebody's fighting. We beefing. Like, I don't understand. All that money. Carrie better go get some Botox or something. Them eyes, I don't know what's giving it the impression that she's over 50 or something, but yeah, like I don't know that it was, and she knew what she was doing too. Like she was throwing so much shade. She knew damn well Carrie was not that old, right?
Exactly.
Inviting her to this little shindig with all these elderly folks. That is so rude. Like,
Not only
no.
elderly folks, women, and as we find out later on, as women in wheelchairs. It's come on, like you couldn't possibly. Curry walked in there and looked like she was in her 30s compared to
She
those
did.
women.
She did.
Like you knew what you were doing, but
She looked like she
again,
was coming to escort somebody.
exactly like the reveal later on, which we'll get into later on, makes perfectly good sense. But here, it just feels like shade. Down to her telling Carrie, "Well, if I talked about your book, I would have to talk about everyone's book," and Carrie saying,
Does everybody write
who else
books?
has a that
I want to
like
come to
it
things
was
like that though.
exactly, it was the perfect response to, oh, you just being shady to be shady at this point. You don't even want to pretend to help me out. But again, it was a solid way to start off the episode by bringing back a classic character, no matter how annoying the character is.
Mhm.
But I mean, between her and Bitsy, like clearly, and thank you for the audience member who pointed out to us exactly the episode that Bitsy was in Sex in the City to make sure we remember, and that she was married to Nathan Lane. Which once she said it, it reminded me completely. I'm like,
Oh my
oh,
god.
that's the woman that married the gay man. So it clicked
Mm.
all over again exactly who that character was. But
Okay.
in this character, I kind of already knew who they were. But let's get off to the fun part of this episode: sending the kids off at a summer camp
Hmm.
and the joy that every parent feels when you can ship your little monster off on someone else for
Yes.
weeks at a time without a concern in the world, which leads to both sets of parents. Hubert, which I'm still confused why his name is Hubert. That is a hell of a name. Hubert, who that's an 80-year-old name. Hubert and
Oh,
Lisa,
it is.
and Harry and Charlotte. And first start off with Harry and Charlotte as it leads to them deciding, let's have sex. No kids at home. Let's
Mhm.
do it. They decide during sex to be adventurous, and Charlotte asks Harry to finish in a different place than they normally finish.
Not in a different
During
place.
his finishing, nothing comes out. What did you think about that scene when she clearly like grabs the toilet paper to which people grab toilet paper to do that? What happened
That
to the
was that was
hot
not.
washcloth?
They apparently they
Like,
don't. They're not hip. Apparently, I mean, they don't do it often,
cause
obviously.
who the
So
hell like ew, that ew.
That's
That is breakdown and
it
it's
will do a
sticky.
lot of things. It will do a lot of things. I
Yeah.
just so the whole lead up, right? The whole build up, like the school bus. First of all, our parents sent us away for like 3 to 6 weeks to a camp where they did not know what would happen to us. That's very problematic. Okay, I just need my parents to know that they shipped us off somewhere and like they didn't know who we were going over there. Like I don't know if they did a thorough enough background check on these people. Nonetheless, I think that it's very fun to see like um Charlotte, right, going through this motion, so to speak, where she wants excitement. I love that for her because I think that there's a little bit of a taboo, for older women to like start wanting to try
Hmm.
new things out. But I was like, okay, come on, Charlotte, let's do this. And I think that it's nice that they showed this because I don't know if many men know that this actually happens. Like we talk about women and menopause and
Hmm.
the wet to dry and all that other stuff, but I've never heard of, like dust essentially, not really dust, but I don't know why that comes to mind. Every time I think of nothing coming out of a penis, I'm like, is there dust? Like, is there like a powder effect that happens? But I like that it talks about that, and then we see them go to the doctor, and it's normal. It's something that happens to all men, or most men. And when it happens, they tell you to do the Kegel exercise, and I thought that was very interesting because I was not aware that men needed to also do things for their pelvic floor.
Hey, look here. I've been doing Kegel since I was in my 20s. It's great for retention of certain things that you need
Mm.
to retain, and it really helps build up things. It works wonders. But I was more surprised when during the act, Charlotte asked him to do that because that's a lot of pressure on a man. Because
Is it?
if I'm accustomed to finishing a certain way, you got to understand when try not to be extremely vulgar, but it's just gonna have to happen because that's the best way I can describe this. When I pull out and when I go up, technically me pulling out is stopping the sensation that's leading to me to finish. So then
Uh,
I have to
okay.
mentally regather myself again to get that back. So then that means I gotta pull out, get back, and get the moving to get that
Right. The
stimulation back
stimulation
up
happened.
again to
Yeah.
finish off. I with I hope a woman never asks me to do that. Please don't.
I
I
mean,
don't
well,
want to.
what if we tell you beforehand?
This is a lot of planning. A lot of planning. Because when I'm in there, if it's good, I'm not gonna want to pull out. I'm sorry. Do you remember what it felt like to stop when the teacher told you recess was over? That's what it feels like pulling out. Okay? I don't
What's
want
a
to do
good
that.
example? What you mean recess is over? We in
Exactly.
another 12
What you
minutes.
mean pull out? I don't want to.
Oh
Like
my gosh.
it's the end of a sensation. But again, I do love the point that they had this discussion. I love that they had a conversation, even going to the doctor to explain exactly what to do about it, and even Charlotte helping Harry out doing his Kegel exercises, saying, "Pretend it's like an elephant." What's that? Elephant? I was about to say tusk. Elephant's nose, and just move and squeeze and move.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah. I like
it's a
her rhymes,
it's
but I can't remember
yeah.
it.
It's amazing that they show just how supportive she is to Harry at this.
Mhm,
She's not disgusted. It's not like,
mhm.
oh, what's wrong with you? It's more like, okay, this happened. Let's find out what happened so we can continue doing what we love to do.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that is the good message here. And again, as you said, um, my mother is the reason for my first set of issues with abandonment when she just let these strangers take me for 6 weeks somewhere and then I couldn't contact anybody. Like like people don't know how traumatizing that is to
They
children.
don't.
Like it takes a while. It takes like a week before you adjust, like, and then you start thinking, like, well, maybe everybody's just dead. So I'm here now. Like,
Horribly gone wrong. Okay.
exactly. But let's go up. Speaking of parents and children, next
Mm,
up we have Miranda as she is now back home again with her ex, tending to her son. We talked about this last episode that I would have not left my significant other to go back home to
mhm.
my grown ass child with his other parental figure there. But here you clearly see like what fully was the point of Miranda going home here. He has his dad there. Just because you say you need mommy, baby, you can mommy on the phone. We could FaceTime, Zoom, Skype, any damn thing. But
That's
I'm not
great.
coming all the way back home. What do you think about this when we see Miranda back home and we see this dynamic and tension in this household? What do you think about that and her leaving where she was at her happiest? We've seen her in years.
So I actually think that her leaving was a good thing, and here's why.
Really?
Because now, only now, when
Ah,
that
okay,
episode
because what happens?
happens,
Yep.
right.
Hmm.
So initially I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, why would you leave? You are happy. You should be enjoying yourself. You're in California. This is like, live it up. But she comes home, she's sleeping on the couch, right? Um, what is this guy's name? Because I know him as
Which
something
one?
else.
Her ex?
Yeah, the husband.
Steve.
Oh, Steve. Okay, Steve. Because Steve is in one of my favorite shows, Chicago Fire, and I was getting ready to call him that.
Yes,
So,
he. Oh man,
so
oh, an amazing show.
nonetheless, yeah. So nonetheless, Steve is punching the punching bag, and the kid is laying down in the bed like with headphones on. Like, why are you here? This is dysfunctional. This is toxic. And so I
Yes.
love the lead up to therapy, and quite frankly, this is probably my biggest issue with Miranda in Sex and the City and in the and just like that. It's that she never seems to fully move with confidence in anything. She lets things happen, if that makes sense, right? You know how
Hmm.
somebody just lets things happen and they
Yep.
just go with it. She's never like actually, besides probably saying she wanted a divorce and that she was unhappy. I haven't seen her like actually put her foot down, make decisions for her that are going to be good for
Hmm.
her. So here you are asleep on the couch because you're okay with that, because you want to be in the same house for him. He is a grown man. He's about to go to college, and he's telling you that it's not healthy for him. This is what I like the most. This is not healthy for me. It's not helping me, and I don't like it. Like, you are part of the problem. And I think that
Hmm.
this is where therapy comes in, a part where I think that children, despite him being 18, right? I feel like you're really still a kid till you're like 21. Your brain hasn't really fully developed up until maybe like 22, I think. But the point
Yeah.
is, you're still grasping some things, right? And so he's still a kid, but for him to have a safe space in therapy to actually say what it is, Miranda now has to face it. And I think that's the biggest thing. Is like, she
Hmm.
needs to face what's going on at home so she can also have this life in Cali, or wherever Trey is. But I just feel like she's not bold enough. She doesn't have her life by the horns. She is in the
You go.
passenger seat of her own life, and that's kind of like why I feel like, okay, yeah, coming home for her was needed. Now that I see the full moment out to therapy
It's
with
the
her.
it's the reveal that was needed.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have gotten it in LA because she wasn't forced to confront her issues.
Hmm.
And we clearly see during that therapy session, her issue is like she blames herself for everything. And unfortunately, a lot of people go through this, especially when they go through a divorce, is that they put everything on themselves instead of acknowledging, like, no, for a divorce to happen, we failed.
Right.
It's on all of us. Like it's a us thing. And it feels like Steve isn't willing to step up and take any form of responsibility for
Hmm.
the failure of their marriage. So everything goes on Miranda. And because she just doesn't want to rock the boat any more than she already has, it's when her son questions, like, what are you all doing? First and foremost, sir, we here because your little punk ass decided to get your heart broken and you couldn't deal with it. My relationship ain't none of your goddamn business. Let's start off first by saying that. But the reason it becomes his business is because neither one of them two are speaking about it.
Right.
That's the problem. It should have been clear, defined lines like, yes, we're getting a divorce. Yes, we are going to separate. No, we are not living in the same household.
Hmm.
Like, this is over with. I've moved on. He needs to move on. We're done. It should have been just that cut and dry. But for some odd reason, she feels the need to hide the world from this grown ass man who, as we said last episode, went off to Amsterdam with his girlfriend.
That is a mother thing, though. And I feel like it's more of a mother's. I won't say that it's more, but I've noticed it more in a mother son relationship versus a mother daughter
Mm,
relationship. A mother daughter relationship is very much like, I'm preparing you for the world. Whereas for some reason with a mother-son relationship is if something happens, call me. And it's very weird. And that's part of the problem
Wow.
because they needed to, like you said, they needed to have clear defined lines. And the only reason why it mattered that he was in the right of bringing it up was because it was now affecting him. And I think a lot of
Mm,
parents are completely thrown by the fact that, like, you saying you're staying together for kids or you saying that you're doing whatever for kids is
mm.
actually very harmful more
To
than
the
it is
kids.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. But that is absolutely correct. Maybe I need to be thankful. This is when I could thank my mom. Granted, I know you allowed strangers to take me for weeks at a time, and I couldn't communicate anymore. But I never had this issue. It was always, I'm setting you up. Well, mm, again, I hate that we at times we have to point out cultural differences, but
Mhm.
maybe that's the biggest difference is that if you are a mom raising kids in certain ethnic groups, you can't be this lax with them being prepared for the world because it's a other fear that kicks in. That don't mean that it doesn't still happen,
Mhm.
but you still have to prepare them for certain things to happen in the world because you're terrified that it will happen to them.
Right.
Whereas Miranda, that's not a fear that she has
Yeah.
with her son. So the only fear she has is I don't want him hurt.
Mhm.
And she thinks him being hurt will automatically bring it back to her breaking up their family.
Right.
And that's why she jumps on the plane. That's why she does all of this stuff.
That's why she need to go to therapy
Yes, that's why she needs to go to therapy.
individually. Yeah.
The family is a great thing, but you still have to deal with your individual problems. It should be family, ex partners, and then self.
Yeah.
Like you need all three sessions because you got too
Absolutely.
much mess going on here with everything else around you. But let me see. Next up, because we done been jumping around, and I think no, matter of fact, no, I want to stick with Miranda here because
Okay.
this is the more interesting part of the episode
It
here.
is. Yeah.
Next up, Carrie and Miranda visit Shay at their new place.
Mhm.
Miranda walks in, and Shay's ex-husband
Mhm.
is there.
Mhm.
What did you think before we get into what happens later on? What did you think about this initial dynamic of we clearly see Miranda's uncomfortable with him being around. But what did you think about this initial dynamic of them before what happens on later on in an episode?
I mean, initially, I think that, like, this goes back to what we talked about before, Miranda's insecurities, right? Like her not
Hmm.
being confident and or secure enough to say, "Well, I'm with Shay. They chose me." Like, and they haven't really given a reason that they haven't been faithful or they haven't, like, you know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? Aside from the fact that they just haven't been 100% honest because Shay never told Miranda that they were married, not alone married, but married to a man. So I see the
Hmm.
uncomfortableness, and which is rightfully so, but you're invited here, like you're here now, like you know what this is, like there's no need to question it. And what makes me even more upset is the way she's doing it and midway kissing Shay. And it's like, why do people do that? Like, why do you ruin a moment to talk about something that's not even really an issue?
Hmm.
Again, back to like the whole needing therapy thing. I like, that Che was like, well, what did you think was gonna happen? That he was gonna drive me 3,000 miles, help me pack up my apartment, get my new stuff and bring it here, and then turn around and just drive another 3,000. Like, make it make sense. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. So it's very interesting, the dynamic. I actually thought for a second he was flirting with Carrie, and
Carrie. Yes. Yeah, it
well,
came across that way.
until the pegging comment. So
No. I mean, maybe Carrie doesn't peg, but I mean, it's a lot of men, straight men, who get pegged.
I'm aware.
So, I mean, yeah, I just love the point that later on when they're all talking and they go into details about their marriage
Hmm.
and how it started and who pursued who
Hmm.
and just that they were in a poly marriage and that they had a girlfriend and
Hmm.
how all this stuff works so you can fully see the dynamic of that marriage and you get to understand in a way for me at least understand why Miranda would be uncomfortable
Yeah.
because Che never shared any of that.
But
And
here's the
that's the
thing.
problem.
what kind of, I think the question is, what kind of conversations are they having? How much do they
Hmm.
really know about each other? Because let's be honest, a lot of times that we've seen them with scenes, it's been sex, or it's been like kind of talking about work, Shay's work. Naturally, it hasn't
Hmm.
really talked about like, Miranda, what do you want to do, what's going on with your son. You mean the first time I'm bringing my son up, or that it's important, is when he's leaving Amsterdam and now I'm running back home? You haven't talked about Steve. So I feel like the blame is on the both of them, on the content that they've been sharing in their relationship. These are things that you should be asking up front, right? Because you and I are in the dating world. If I went on a date with you, my questions to start off would be like, so tell me, like, have you ever been married before? Have you ever been engaged before? Like, and these are normal questions in the dating world. So how is it that Che and Miranda haven't had these kind of conversations, and Miranda keeps getting caught off guard? What kind of questions are you not asking?
Living in bliss. And it's the same exact issue that she has with Steve. I don't want to rock the boat. We're having fun. If I ask questions, maybe the fun will end.
Mm-hmm.
Or to me, it also goes to Che. At what point do they open up?
Yeah.
Because Miranda did open up to Che about Steve.
Mm-hmm.
That happened in season one when she asked questions. When they asked questions of Miranda,
Oh,
Miranda
right.
was
Yeah.
honest about
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
So that part was shared, but Che, I think they just come across as the type of person that you got to pull information out of,
You do. Yeah. Because
and
even
and
down to
that
the
is
whole
part of
stomach
the
thing.
problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
again, that's part of the problem is if I have to pull that type of information out of you, if I have to pull out of you that you've been married, that you were in a poly marriage, because being married is one thing, being in a
Yeah.
poly marriage is another thing completely different, because then we need to have a discussion. Is this your preferred method of a relationship? It's
Right.
no issue with that. I just have to be accepting of that as
Yeah.
being your preferred method of a relationship.
Miranda has
But
to ask the hard questions that may lead to the answers
mhm,
of her saying, you know what, this isn't for me. And she's too afraid that it isn't for her, that she would rather just not ask
mhm.
the question.
And if she asks the question as it's not for her and she's not willing to accept it, she'll be lonely, because Che made it easy for her to move on from Steve.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take away that piece out of it, you take Che out of the equation, Miranda's just lonely and she has no one. She has a son who, in all honesty, he wanted her when he got his heart broken, but before then, he's been treating her horribly.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like she would be in the pit of being lonely, and I think that is her biggest fear. But let's talk about this mm, romantic scene. I'm gonna call it that. I'm gonna call it an uncomfortable threesome. I mean,
Oh,
I've
yeah.
been in an uncomfortable threesome,
I have
not
no
like
idea.
this,
I have no idea why Miranda thought it was a good idea to get on top of Che. Wow.
because
I'm very confused. She's never done this before. Okay, never mind. Keep going.
not only that, but it brought to mind of when you're having threesomes, when two people are in the midst of a moment, that is not the time to interject yourself into it. Just wait. It all go. It all
But
comes back around again.
Miranda does
But when you
not
try
want
to
to be
force
left
it,
out. You know
yeah,
this.
because she's uncomfortable. She's not. She was never comfortable with that play in the first place. So when it starts off with him being knocked out in the bed and just Shay deciding that they just wanted to start it up with Miranda, I felt from the beginning that this was going to be bad, because Miranda was uncomfortable from the beginning and didn't speak on it. So, what
Yeah.
do you think about the uncomfortableness at the beginning, where it progressed to, and then the end of it?
I mean, I just feel like it was just weird and awkward because Che knew that they probably, I feel like it kind of was like, this might be a possibility. Let me see if she's open to it, if Miranda's open to it. And so, starting it up. But here's my thing too, like, if you're in the bed with somebody else, right? Like Miranda couldn't
Hmm.
just be quieter. Like you trying to tell me, like you just needed to be as loud as you were normally if it was just the two of you. It was weird to me. It was kind of like like I don't know. My brain doesn't function like that in most places because I know how to be quiet when the time calls for it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I thought it was interesting. So nonetheless, he's up now, and Che is still very much open to it. And for a second there, I was like a little confused because now I'm thinking, so you guys aren't divorced, and this is possibly something that you guys are doing on the
And
side.
that was,
And so maybe Miranda really does have a reason to be, unsure about
concerned.
what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, concerned. And so I thought it was interesting that, yeah, the moment is kind of there. They're having the moment. I thought that it was weird that she went so aggressive um, into the mix. But then I realized that Che had gotten really aggressive with the ex-husband, like almost kind of forgot about
Yep.
Miranda,
Yep.
went
Yep.
straight
Hmm.
for the husband, the ex, and she didn't really Miranda didn't feel included. So she tries to interject herself. Meanwhile, Che and the ex are really going forward, and I'm just like, this is awkward. I think that any threesome is awkward when all parties don't feel equally involved, when they don't feel
Hmm.
like, you know what I mean? Like, because nobody wants to feel neglected. I'm supposed to be your main partner. This person is just, I thought the person you were adding, this is like adding sprinkles, and it kind of just didn't feel that way. But at
Yeah.
least Che did come out, to sleep on the broken couch with Miranda. But I think that they need to have a real conversation about what their life looks like moving forward, and if Miranda is really okay with this, because I don't think that she
Hmm.
is. I think that she's got a band-aid on a situation that needs stitches, as far as like the
Hmm.
leaving Steve, and the things that how it impacted her son, how her son is treating her, and where she's going next in her life journey. So it's a lot for Miranda to figure out, quite
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah. I mean, one, they broke multiple rules of threesomes. First, you don't have a threesome like you do a pop-up shop. Meaning it can't be random.
Can't be
Random threesomes are never good
never
at
good.
all because it's so many conversations that have to be had beforehand. No matter what the dynamic of your threesome is, like you
Yeah,
need to have these type of conversations beforehand to gauge your how comfortable you are with it. To gauge, okay, this is what happens. These are the actions, especially when you're dealing with someone who's never been in one before. You
yeah,
you literally got to break it down like you doing a football play and put it on a board. Like, hey, okay, so if this happens, this needs to be your response.
right.
But if this is not your response, when you feel uncomfortable, it's okay to say,
I
hey,
feel
can we slow
uncomfortable.
down? I'm uncomfortable here. This is
Hmm.
maybe this is a little bit too much for me. I think just the spur of the moment of it all was automatically a bad omen that nothing good was going to happen there.
Yeah,
Because how does this work?
yeah.
Does Miranda is not really into men, but Lyle is, I want to say, more queer than straight,
It's
or at least that's
possible.
the way it appears in their conversations that they're had. You both can't peg them. You got to prepare to peg people, because who the hell is randomly pegging people out here?
That's
That's
not
not an area in the body you can randomly go
no,
into.
absolutely
So
not.
again, so what was the end goal of this? Was it just excuse my harsh language here, a finger bang for everybody? Because what the hell was going to happen here? Like it didn't fully make sense on how the execution of this would even work. But again, that just comes along with doing things at the spur of the moment, and that's what threw it off more than anything, is attempting to do things at the spur of the moment.
Yeah.
And speaking of the spur of the moment, Lisa and Herbert, Herbert. I hate that name so much.
No, no.
Lisa and Herbert. First we see them in a nice little dinner that they're happy that there are no kids around. I just need to know, all my parents with toddlers or 10-year-olds or 13-year-olds, or no, because Charlotte has teenagers.
Hmm.
Why aren't y'all getting alone time? Do y'all not believe in leaving kids alone? Like, at what point do you say, hey, mommy and daddy are going out to dinner? You're gonna stay home with a babysitter. I'm not rushing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm confused. I understand the trope that, once the kids away, the parents get the freedom to do the things
Mhm.
that they want to do. But I'm just confused on what type of communication are you having with your children? Because you think I'm waiting to have sex because kids are down the hall? No, you're gonna know. Guess what grown people do? Let's talk sex. This is what happens. This is how you got here, or this is how you was created
This
because
is why my
they
master bedroom
adopted it.
needs sound
Yeah.
insulation, okay, so that they
Oh no,
can't hear
you
what's going
if you
on.
go, if you go, you can hear certain things. Turn up TV. Grab your headphone. Grady had them. Put headphones on. You'll be perfectly fine. But I'm not gonna stop what I want to do because you're present. No, those are discussions you have with children. But maybe it's growing up in black households, and your mom always telling you stay in the kid's place. Mind, get your mind
Listen,
out of grown folks' business. Like
I
it's
know.
certain things you just didn't do. My mama
Listen,
went on dates. My mom and my stepdad
listen.
went on lots of dates.
There
Like
were
I knew they were
dates.
going on dates.
I knew there were dates happening, but I tell you what, my mom was a virgin to me for a long time, despite that I'm here existing in this very world. Okay, she was a virgin to me. You know who wasn't a virgin though? My daddy, cause
There you-
okay, all right. So let's yeah, no, but I get that. I think that they just have to come to that space where they're comfortable. But look at who we're talking about though, right? They're kind of and look at just look at what Hubert's mom and
Mother
Herbert's
Jefferson,
mom,
because that's her
yeah,
name now to me.
and Lisa's
That's what
dad.
she acts
Like
like.
they are very,
But
they
no,
are
they're
so
polar
opposite.
opposites of one another. Like Lisa's dad is an artist. He's way more free wielding on
Yeah,
doing
he
whatever
is.
you want, whatever comes across you do. Uh Herbert's mom is just uppity. Like she's
She's a
tight
problem.
wound and everything of this nature. But again, let's talk about the anniversary dinner that nothing goes right. So as they get to this dinner, we originally find out that Herbert forgot to send invitations to everybody. So
Hmm.
no one's going to show up to this dinner. Later on, we find out that Lisa forgot to order the cake, which
Hmm.
shouldn't have mattered once you don't invite people. Fuck that cake.
Right.
But what did you think about the disastrous setup of this anniversary dinner and how it played to the background of the issues that both of them two were having with each other's parents?
I thought that it was interesting. It was very, very well done, actually. That scene in itself, you know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean. You guys are both so busy that each of you forgot something. It impacts the dinner, but also it's showing that the word of mouth still exists, right? The fact that these people were here and showed up because you personally asked them and invited them. When it comes to their parents, it's the struggle that also kind of is in their own marriage that shows up as far as Lisa
Mm-hmm.
feeling like she has to do it all. And, despite, which is weird because she's loved and appreciated and complimented by her dad a whole lot in a way where I felt like, damn, this is good. Like you have exactly what you need. But Herbert, I feel like he doesn't stand up for her the way her dad does. Like
Yeah.
there's this weird, like he's still trying to please his mom. And in trying to please your mother, somebody is gonna get nicked. You know what I mean, right? But your
Mm-hmm.
wife is supposed to come before your mother. Like that's how it works once you get married. But I think that a lot of times men do not remember that, and or their moms try to have this hold on them. And if you don't have your
Mm-hmm.
boundaries in place and you don't put your foot down, then initially that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah. I mean, but we get the same dynamic between Lisa and her father. Her father repeatedly insults Herbert,
Hmm.
and Lisa doesn't really say anything. She tries to brush it off. Oh, he's not about that. But it's not the furious like, hey, that you can't do that. You
Hmm.
can't. But again, it's their dynamic that neither parent accepts that their child ended up with this person,
Hmm.
and they're all picking apart flaws, whether it be Mother Jefferson being mad at Lisa because Lisa is not a stay-at-home mom and didn't give up her life, her career, her
Yeah.
passion for her marriage,
Yeah.
or whether it be Lisa's dad being mad that Herbert cares about money, that he
So
cares about
much.
what it takes to provide for his family. Because we don't see him, Herbert, ever living truly in abundance. He may do a lot of things for money, but as we saw in episode 1, when he attempted to say, "Hey, baby, you working too hard. Just let me give you this, so it gives you a peace of mind." Like,
Hmm.
I think that's a completely different person than someone who's going around and flaunting the money like
Right.
his mother does.
Yeah.
I think that it's always a counterbalance between them.
Yeah.
And I think, as you said, it's a beautiful thing that the people that showed up are the people that they invited by mouth, by
Yeah.
conversation, because
Yeah.
that's the one thing people don't do anymore.
Anymore.
Just
No.
imagine having your anniversary come up and you have a group of friends, and because you don't send an invite out, no one knows about it. That almost means you don't communicate with anybody.
Right. Yeah.
Like, everything is through an email, everything is through a text message. Like that, it
Hmm.
would be absolutely insane to have to
It
go through.
is. Yeah.
And I love this whole scene because the way they play the dynamics, whether it be Charlotte being offered a job during the scene, Harry being forced to sit with Mother Jefferson over at the end of the table, just be, as the conversation between Harry and Herbert when he say, I want to think we're more than just like
Dad
school or
friends.
school dad friends.
Hmm.
And Harry said, no, I thought we were friends.
Yeah.
Great, you're sitting next to my mother. Like,
Yeah.
it's the dynamic that's needed. And even though the party was small, which also made me question, why the hell didn't you just like group everybody at one table and say, look, this is what we're gonna do? Like, it puzzling, but again, this rich people problems because you got that much food and you
Yes.
wondering what to do with it
Love
after
food
it.
for
It would be
31
just
people. Yeah.
exactly like I wouldn't even no. Even if I had I'm not giving 31 people lobster. You will get tilapia and be happy with it. You
Oh
will love
my
it.
God.
You
I
will
do
love
not.
it.
The views and comments made by Lucas do not cover the views.
Yeah. Oh, let's get through little things and then get to the close with Carrie. First little thing is Seema and Carrie meeting for lunch, and Seema telling Carrie, hey, don't be offended. Like, she's asking you to do her a favor. This stuff is
Mhm.
reciprocal. That's not your
Mhm.
friend. It's a business relationship.
Business. Yeah.
Treat it as such. I think that was highly important because that's something that Carrie doesn't do too often. Later on, we get Harry being able to finish. Not much to talk about there.
Yeah.
It just came back, and again, she grabbed the tissues to wipe. Ew, like
Rich people
ew.
problems, maybe. Maybe.
No, because when you have wet wipes by your bed, like, wouldn't that make way more sense than tissues?
Listen. Yes, it would. Wipes and/or a very nice warm washcloth is a very good
It
thing
better
to
be a
use.
warm washcloth. If I have intimate relationships with a
Because
lady
wipes
and
are not
she
that
pulls
great.
out a napkin, a tissue to wipe, I'll be like, I'm going home. I will go home with this on me before I let you put tissue paper on me.
It's the grind for me. Like
Exactly.
it's so bad.
The moment I would have seen it, ooh, child, the ghetto. The ghetto. What are you doing with that? I don't need to blow my nose.
Yeah, no.
Like, are you crazy?
Those tissues
But
are purely decorative. They are not actually to be used.
not for semen cleanup. Like,
Not
it
that
made
though.
no sense. Oh God, that made absolutely no sense. But let's close off with Carrie going to Eden's big event and Seema beforehand letting her know, hey, for your brand, there's no issue going there. There's no issue getting a favor, but for your brand, you can't be photoed with any old people in wheelchairs because it would automatically make you old. As we see
Mhm.
Carrie, as she enters in, a lady in the walkers asks to take a picture, and Carrie clearly scoots past it. But
Oh,
what did you think about the whole event before we get to the bitsy moments of the event? Because that is a whole different form of hilariousness. But what did you think about the initial event, the initial conversations of the event, and the purpose of it? Because that's, I think, the most important part here.
it was a little dry. They needed some liquor and some rap music.
You say rap?
I thought that it was interesting, you know what I mean? But it was what I expected, crumpets and tea and whatnot.
Yeah.
I just feel like they were just getting together. It's good to feel like you still matter. I think that's really what it is. But then also
Yeah.
realizing that the people who were invited were only people who had very deep pockets. Where
Hmm.
it was like, oh, this is an investment. I felt real pyramid schemish for a second. I was
Yep.
just like, I'm not sure where this is going. But yeah, the money factor was interesting considering that I didn't even realize how rich and deep Carrie's pockets really were. And
Big
so
was rich.
yeah, yeah. So I thought that it was interesting. I feel like it's an old lady gang, get together and they're entitled to do that. The conversation seemed to be um I think it was insightful for Carrie, right? I feel like she
Yeah.
did gain things, she learned things, she understood how to kind of navigate through and play the game. So I feel like it was good, up until you get to that conversation that she has with what's her name. It's very interesting that
Bitsy.
yeah, like we should not be
Bitsy.
keeping
Is,
dick pics in our phones still, Carrie. Like,
but she sent a man to her first, and then told her like, "Look, I had sex with him. Like he got it. Like
yeah,
it's there. You need to experience the joy that I experience here." And then to randomly send somebody a penis pic in the
yeah,
middle of a bruncheon is wild.
yeah.
So, how many of your friends have possibly sent you penis pics in uncomfortable situations?
Oh, all the
Go.
time. Yeah, all the time. I mean, I have a privacy screen for that exact reason. Like, there will be no surprises over here. You have to be directly behind me to see what I'm looking at. Nope. Mm-mm. I definitely. So, quick funny story. I was playing that game. Heads up, my phone was here,
Yep.
and yeah, and then so they were like, "Is that a penis?" And I was like, "What? What the hell?" I'm done playing this game. I'm tapped. This is why
Oh, a completely different type of game.
completely different type of game. And yeah, so now I have a private screen saver, a private screen protector on my phone, and all my pictures that people have sent me go into a different folder, so that way it doesn't get accidentally flipped up when I'm playing charade games.
Hey, straight women have that luxury because they can get sent things and create a folder of that nature. I one at one time was sent a pic from a woman that I was not expecting to get, and when I got it, when I say I immediately called like, hey, no, no,
No,
no, no, no, no, no, no, no, no, no, no, that's not no. Mm-mm, mm-mm,
my
mm-mm,
ego would be hurt if that happened to me.
mm-mm. Because that's not the most photogenic area for women to take pictures of. You know,
Oh,
uh, up top, great. Hey, it's always a good, yeah.
yeah,
Uh, uh,
you
uh,
gotta
uh,
master those type of
a breast
pictures.
pic is always great. Them jokes are amazing, but when we get to the lower region, baby, unless you got the perfect lighting and like the porn directors shooting it in 4K,
It was
like that is something you need to just send a random pic to someone about because it can really
yeah.
throw them off. But again, let's close it out about the 100,000 and about Carrie at this moment feeling comfortable enough when she realized that this wasn't a friend giving a luncheon for everybody, even though Carrie got to meet her hero there. It was
Mhm.
way more of a donors
Mhm.
brunch lunch for everybody to give $100,000 to. And at this moment, this is when Carrie feels comfortable enough to say, "Oh, then you're clearly plugging my book. Like you're clearly
Right.
doing all of this for this 100,000." And then, unfortunately, as they're going, she's I don't what was she going through Carrie's phone for?
So look at the pictures
She
that
was
they
looking
had
at
taken.
pictures of the pictures to get approval because that's what even older women need approval of pictures. It's crazy
Mhm.
what time we're in. But then she sees a penis pic and realizes that that's her boyfriend's penis pic.
Mhm.
And Carrie kind of insults her by saying, "I would never sleep with someone that old."
Bells,
And
right.
she said, "You're calling me old."
But
It
girl,
was a
you are
funny
old and
way to
dusty.
old and dusty. you, you mad because she
So
don't want
rude.
to touch that old man's penis because you want to touch that old man's penis? Like, ew. But
Oh my gosh.
what did you think about the closing of this episode? with Curry coming to realization, I think, in a way that, you know what, everybody's not your friend. We
Mhm.
can have a long form relationship in a sense, but that don't mean it was ever a friendship. And
Right.
there's nothing wrong with being transactional with someone.
Yeah.
Like, just you're asking me for money. Guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna plug
Mhm.
whatever I needed you to plug.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like that's a valid statement. I love that Carrie came back with a little, oh well, if I gave you 100,000, then I'd have to give everybody 100,000, and having that like moment, but realizing like this girl is not her friend, like, and that's okay.
Hmm.
This is a business transaction. This is an associate. This is something I need for my book or for my podcast or whatever the case is.
Hmm.
And I think that that was healthy because I think that sometimes Carrie can get a little bit carried away in thinking that everybody that she encounters, that she's known from one part of her life or another, is a friend. And that might
Hmm.
be something she's learning now. That's not true.
Exactly. And so, our final thoughts on this episode. For me, it's simple. This is the best episode of the season. It could be quickly. Did you enjoy this one other more than the first three episodes?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Again, it felt like we were back in a groove of what made Sex in the City good. Granted, it was some hiccups along the way. I did not expect to see an old penis on this show, but we're here
Smart.
now. So it is what it is. But you can tune back in, check out our recap review of I'm about to call it Sex in the City, Jesus. Um,
Hmm.
and just like that, every Thursday at 4 a.m. Since for some odd reason Max has decided to drop these episodes at 3 a.m. in the morning. And let us know, one, what do you think about Miranda and Che's relationship moving forward? Do you think the introduction of Lau is going to create a huge problem for their relationship? What do you think about the dynamic shown here between Herbert, Lisa, and their parents? Do you think that is a way to have a healthy relationship? What do you think about Charlotte and Harry? And is that form of open communication a perfect way for a marriage to continue? Again, this has been another recap review of And Just Like That. Peace, people.